And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and again, as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, we're going to highlight the Shoreline Playwrights today, and they're based on the Shoreline in the state of Connecticut. And I have the pleasure of having Thoma and Teri Fogel as my guests today. And ladies, so nice to have you today. Thanks so much for coming to the station.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. Now, Laura, you were a guest last year, which was a wonderful opportunity for both of us, although via Zoom.
Yes.
So welcome to the station.
Thank you.
Let's refresh the memory of the viewer. And why don't we talk about your background? Tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. So I started in as a dancer in theater. I was a classically trained ballerina first, and then I became a musical theater performer, and that's where I spent the first part of my life. Then I was injured, and eventually I found my way back to theater through playwriting.
And did you think as a young person that you were going to be dancing the rest of your life? Not thinking about the injury, but did you just think that was going to be your life?
You know, it's interesting. I don't know that I really thought about it much in the beginning, you know, but then it was just such a magical place for me, and I loved dancing, so I never really thought about doing anything else. So it was quite an adjustment when I was injured, because I really had to begin to think about what else I could do, wanted to do. Theater had always been my entire life, so it was a huge transition for me.
How did you transition? You had the injury, and then how did you find musical theater?
I did. Well, I had the injury, and that ended both musical theater and ballet for me. But then I found visual arts, so I became a photographer for a while. I actually made jewelry out of photographs. And I worked with several coaches, life coaches, and then that helped me transition to actually becoming a life coach, which is something I still do part-time. And through that, it just gave me the space to kind of explore different things. But what I realized was I really miss theater. I miss the collaboration and the magic that is, you know, live theater, sitting in the dark, believing with people. So I slowly found my way back through my writing, which is something I had always done.
So you are classified as a playwright and a writer.
Yes.
When did the writing happen?
I have been writing my whole life. I started when I was really young, but in 4th grade in particular, I started getting a lot of red marks all over my paper for having poor grammar. So I kind of pulled my writing back and kept it to myself. And then in the 90s, sometimes when I was taking college classes, I had a professor who was just so supportive, and he wrote on one of my papers, "Are you a professional writer, or you should be?" And I was like, "But look at all the red marks that you have put all over my paper." And he was like, "You know what, you just need to work with a really good editor. You're a good storyteller, and you know, you need help with grammar, you need to work on it and study, but you're a good storyteller." So he encouraged me, and slowly over the years it's just become something that has come out more and more.
Good, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Teri, why don't we talk about your background? Tell us about yourself. I'm thrilled you're here.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for having us. My background's a little different than Laura's. I also have been writing since I was young, but I spent 35 years in the business industry. And even though I wasn't in the theater, I was always writing. I submitted several articles that were published in our local magazine where I raised my family, and it was always something that was my passion that I wanted to do. So when my son graduated from college, I said, okay, now it's my turn. So this is my act 2, if you may. And my husband was very supportive. He said, go do your thing. And that's what I started to do. And then I was lucky enough to meet Laura, and we found that we clicked, we worked well together, and yeah, we've been doing this now on and off for 4 years, 5 years.
Really, that long?
Yeah. I decided that since I went from writing to playwriting. I like the collaborative nature of the theater. And I said, well, I've been in numbers for so long, I need to immerse myself. So I saw an ad in the paper for a local theater that wanted actors to do stage readings. I am not an actor. I never had any aspirations, but I said, this is a good way to learn. And that's where I met Laura. I was scared out of my mind, and I forbid any of my friends to come see the performances. But it was really a great learning experience, really great.
And she was great. She's very talented.
And then I joined, someone gave us a heads up, and I joined a theater group in Norwalk that had a lot of very, very talented actors there, and learned a lot there. It was a drive, because it was once a week. We drove. It was nice to have company. We drove down, and it was an hour. But a lot of good experience. Our plays were chosen for the festival, so they, it was nice to see your play done with equity actors. They were all equity. Yeah, most of them were equity. So that was really, really exciting, and I love this. I absolutely love playwriting, and it's very exciting to see your work up on stage.
You know what, that's a really good question for the viewer that is watching us now. What is the difference between being a writer and being a playwright? Because you hear them interchanged, and they're probably very separate things. Laura or Teri, whatever your thoughts are, go ahead.
There is an actual term for that, which I don't know what it's called. It's like not all hot tubs are jacuzzis, but all jacuzzis are hot tubs, if I'm saying that right. But like all playwrights are writers, but not all writers are playwrights. So I am a playwright. I'm also a writer in the sense that I'm currently working on novels. I write personal essays. I write poetry. So I work in different forms. So that's where they're different. I think many playwrights are writers, probably, who do other things.
Yeah, I also think one of the things I love about playwriting is dialogue. It could be so fun and so different, where I think sometimes when you're writing a novel, it seems like there's a little bit more, I don't know if the word is formality to it, whereas with dialogue, it's how people speak, it's how people interact. Not that doesn't happen in novels, but you have all the description in the novels of the scenery and what's going on, where in a play, it's action, which is, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
The website, I visited it, and of course I visited your other websites as well. But tell us about what the viewer would find when they visit the website.
Absolutely. It's just a little page to get to know us, basically. We decided that we wanted to start getting to know the community, so it has a short bio, I think, for each of us, and what our current projects are, what we're currently working on.
And that's a good question. What are you working on? We're in 2022. Do you have thoughts? I know something's coming up.
Yes.
So there are lots of things happening in 2022, 23, 24. I mean, tell us what your calendar is like.
Yeah, well, to start, we're working on Works in Progress at Drama Works Theater, which is an evening of stage readings. It's 3 women playwrights, Teri and myself, and another playwright named Jennifer Jew. And we wanted people to begin to understand what it means to be a writer and what the process is. So we wanted to bring in plays that were not finished or polished or complete, and share it with the audience, and then have a conversation with them about it and see what questions they have, see if they had feedback for us.
And that's great, because you write something, and a lot of times, at least for me, I'll start a long piece that'll start off as a short piece, because you want to get to know the characters. So it was a lot of fun to write something, and now I'm going to get to hear it done by actors and get the audience, see how does the audience feel about these characters, about this premise, which will help me expand to make it a full length.
And it's also amazing to hear where people laugh, where they don't respond where you think they are. That's fascinating too, because in your own head, you're hearing it a certain way, you think the audience is going to react one way, and then it can be totally different.
Playwriting, is there your recommendation for schooling, workshops, networking? What should people do in case there's a viewer that's out there that would like to become a playwright?
Absolutely. First of all, you don't need anything. That's the base level. There are amazing playwrights who, I'm just watching Marie Irene Fornez, who had, I think, a grade school education. August Wilson, I think, had a high school education. So you just need to be willing to tell stories. But there are amazing programs out there now. There, not all, but many universities have playwriting programs. We're both students at the Dramatists Guild Institute of Dramatic Writing. They have great classes. There's tons of online classes as well now.
When I decided that this was the direction I wanted to go to, I found out that Yale had a writer's workshop, and they had a playwriting track. So I signed up. And one of the things that I found really interesting, like Laura was saying, you write a play and the character's voice is in your head. Well, I remember they read a scene of one of my plays, and this man read the part not at all the way I wrote it. But I remember sitting back and going, okay, I like that better. So it's great when you can have people read your work and sort of yes, they speak to the playwright so they can understand what the playwright's intention was, but when they put their own a little bit of a spin on it, it sort of gives you a little bit direction of, oh, I could go this way or I could go that way.
Do you ever take negative criticism to heart? I mean, do you kind of go with what's coming your way and kind of change what you've written and now it becomes something else? Do you take any offense to somebody saying anything? Any thoughts?
Go ahead.
To me, I'm a teacher's daughter. So to me, and it's also the delivery, how somebody gives you criticism. It depends on what it is that they're saying. If somebody is looking to rewrite my play, not so much. But if someone gives me something that I consider to be constructive, then I'll take that into account. I won't change my whole play, because at the end of the day, that's my play. And I know what my intentions were, but I will listen to helpful suggestions.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, because I find feedback to be one of the most challenging things. I take it very personally. And I actually reached out to Lauren Gunderson, who is a very famous playwright, and she was kind enough to write me back. And I said, how do you deal with that kind of feedback? Because as you're developing your play, sometimes you get very helpful feedback. Sometimes you get things where you're like, they don't understand and they're attacking my play. And she was very helpful, and she was like, you just take everything and write it down, so that, because sometimes in the moment it's too emotional. You're so attached and it's really hard to take feedback in the moment. She's like, write everything down. And then when you have time and space and you're with your trusted people, like I'm with Teri or other playwrights that I, admire, then I can go through it with them and go, what do you think? Do you think how does this balance? And I can sit with myself and do the same thing. Does this feel like a good fit? Do they have a good point? Or is it not something, maybe it doesn't fit for me? And one of the biggest things I learned, and I can't remember who said it, but it was another playwright who said, sometimes she will turn to people and go, that sounds like a great idea. You should write that play. Because sometimes people are trying to, change your play. They have a wonderful idea. So I always encourage people to, they should write a play as well. I think that's helpful.
Congratulations are in order. Magpie is coming up and is now famous. Why don't you tell the audience about it?
Oh, Magpie is such a dear project to me. It started probably 25 years ago as an essay in the class of that teacher I spoke of. And it was a prompt that said, write something that is personal but also universal. And I wrote a story about going to see my father's grave. And 25 years later, it is a full-length play. And it's taken a long time. I was a playwright in resident and worked on it there. And now Ed at Drama Works has been generous enough to support new work. And he's given me a weekend, and I'm actually directing it, which is so exciting. We have some amazing actors. Teri's one of my stage managers for the project. So yeah, I'm just so excited that it's going to get to have a little life of its own. It's been published, but it was published during the pandemic, so I didn't get to have a development production. So this will hopefully also impact the script a little bit.
Well, good. Let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Every day,
millions of people are connecting.
And even though we're overcoming obstacles,
watching each other's backs,
and banding together,
we should still make an effort.
To get to know each other
on a deeper level.
Father,
cosplayer,
mentor,
actor.
It's time we take a step forward.
It's time we take a step forward.
Come together
and discover
how accepting our differences
can make us stronger.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide. It provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
Unfiltered.
reliable,
And yours.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and I really hope that you're enjoying the show. Well, we're highlighting the Shoreline Playwrights, and Teri Fogel and Laura Thoma continue to be my guests. And ladies, we were talking during the break about the rest of 2022 into 2023. What are your aspirations? What are your hopes? What do you hope your work will be doing from now on?
That's an amazing question and a large question. As far as Shoreline Playwrights, we created ourselves in order to create opportunities for ourselves. So we both submit all the time to theaters and other opportunities that we are not creating, where somebody's going to say yes or no to us. But we're hoping to produce and create opportunities for ourselves in the next couple years.
Yeah, I have 2 full-length plays that I would really like to see up on stage. You know, I've spoken to Ed about one of them. I'm working on another one that's very near and dear to my heart. And at some point I'd like to see that up and running. So, yeah.
Good question. To the individual that is pursuing being a playwright, how do you submit yourself for anybody to see your work? How do you get published? What are the next steps that happen to become recognized?
Yeah, that's a great question. Writing a play, some people, I'm fascinated in getting to know playwrights. Some people write very quickly and seem to get a whole play fairly easily. Other people, it takes a process. No matter which way it is for you, you will then have to develop it. So you'll have to have readings and get it on its feet. And then all theaters around the country, you can submit, and there are many different platforms you can find online that will give you all the submission opportunities. So there's ones from community theater to regional theater, to bigger theaters where you can actually submit your work. I just recently submitted for a development opportunity where I could bring a director on board, and we had to create a proposal and say, this is what we want 2 weeks. And they're basically going to act like producers if they choose us. So we're kind of looking for space and time, and then they get a grant, and that's what they're using their grant to provide for artists. So basically then you go out and just submit, and then you wait. You get lots of rejections as a writer. That is one thing you do have to learn to live with, is rejection, because it is a common every week kind of thing.
That's a really good point. How do you deal with rejection? Any thoughts, Teri?
I read an article once that said that you should deal with rejections as opportunities. So I actually have a folder that I've labeled opportunities, and I tuck my rejections in that folder. My work is not everybody's cup of tea, so I have had some success, and you just have to believe in yourself and keep submitting. There's so many different places. For any beginning playwrights, if there's like a local theater, just go to their website and they'll tell you if they take submissions and how you should submit. There's a Facebook group. Thank you. There's a Facebook group that's called Playwriting Submissions, and they list opportunities in Facebook. There's some other websites where you could go that they will list opportunities, and whether somebody's looking for a 10-minute play or 1-act play, if you have it submitted, because it just gives you more and more experience and more confidence as you get some not rejections. I can't believe I can't think. What's the opposite of rejection?
Success is you get some yeses along the way, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
My first one, I was like, I ran around the house screaming. I'm like, look what I got. It's a great feeling.
Yeah. Well, and one of the best things, I'm not going to remember his name. He was a playwright at the Playwright Center in Minneapolis. I took a class with him, and he said, you have to think about it like you wrote a cat play. You don't know if all cats are reading your play, or is it a room full of dogs reading your play and maybe one cat? Like, you just don't know who's reading your play, so you have to. It's a numbers game, really, to get your play in front of enough people that you find the people who understand what you're trying to do, who align with what the story you're trying to tell, and who are excited to tell it with you.
Your work, does it depend on the theater that you're submitting to, that it will fit into that theater itself? Or are you submitting and hopefully somebody's going to pick it up and it's going to play in Arizona or it's going to play in Bali or something like that? Right. How do you put the two together?
Yeah, it's interesting because some people, you can change your work a little bit, but sometimes really your homework is to go on their website, read it. Is my work a good fit? You know, because I have one play that's a historical play that some theaters wouldn't even look at. If they're doing contemporary work, though my work has contemporary themes, they just wouldn't, the fact that it's based in 1895, they wouldn't be interested. So I have to kind of do my homework and go, who will read this and give it a chance?
Do the two of you write a play together?
No, we haven't yet.
haven't.
We haven't yet.
Okay, so that they're each individual, but yet you've created your name for your group, Shoreline Publishing?
Playwrights.
Playwrights.
Yeah.
I've got publishing because I want to publish. I want to publish both of you so badly.
Aw,
Thank you. We know
Yeah.
each other, but we know each other's work. We do read each other's work, but we haven't. But I think at some point that could be really fun.
Absolutely.
That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but we did it because we wanted to produce each other's work. So a couple years ago, I think, was the first one we did, Fall Shorts. I don't know if that was our first one, but that one we had 9.
Yes.
We had ourselves, we had another playwright, and we did 9 different plays. It was amazing. But we know each other's work well enough. And the thing about Teri and I is we're both type A. I think I can say that, right? We're very organized. We're very oriented. So we work really well together in that way, and we're good at producing together because we think the same way.
And I think we respect each other's strengths. So Laura did the website, and that's her strength. I like to go out and I'll do the marketing, and I'll do the advertising, and I'll knock on people's doors, and I don't have a problem with that. So we complement each other, which I think is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Do you think, would you advise a playwright to get a partner or other people to work with, or can they do it all alone?
You can absolutely do it all alone. The challenge, I think, for most writers in general is what we do alone in a room. So it's so important to have community however you do it. I always say get a partner because it's just so nice. When we're working on something, we call each other, like, I don't know, 100 times a day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, what about this? What about that? But it's just so nice to know you're not alone and you're working towards something. And even when we're working on our own projects separately, I always know Teri is somebody I can call and go, what do you think about this? You know, because she's somebody who knows my work, respects my work. And that's so important for writers, to build that community, because we do so much alone.
Yeah, writing is solitary. You know, it's a solitary thing. So it's nice to be able to share. I mean, I could give my play to my husband and he'll say, oh, it's great. But when I give it to Laura, she's looking at it as a theater professional. She's reading it as a fellow playwright and can give me, not honey, that you can't give me great criticism, but it's different. It's from a colleague that can certainly look for the holes, look for this is really strong, I don't know that this works, and that's very important so that you can ultimately get your work in front of an audience.
Is a playwright just for theater, or can it be used in film, television, commercials? I mean, how does that information move from one genre to another?
That's an interesting question. There are many playwrights who become writers for film and television. It is a different format, but my example is I wrote during the pandemic, I wrote a series of monologues that were one-person monologues, and I had a friend in California. I was like, will you play with me? Will you do this? So we did it over Zoom, and I filmed it, and somebody else suggested that I submit it to a film festival, which I was like, okay. That was not the intention. I was just keeping myself busy.
I think I saw that on your website.
Right? Yeah.
She was great.
Oh, she's so funny. Erin Stoddard is her name. And
yeah, right.
She's going to be in New Hampshire doing Mamma Mia, I think, in the next 2 weeks. So.
Okay.
But yeah, it's done quite well. And so it's given me the confidence. There are several things I have that I wrote as plays that I think could transfer to a series. But it is a whole nother skill, which I haven't taken the time to totally learn. You have to immerse yourself in that as well. But many playwrights do it.
One of the interesting things that happened during the pandemic was that a lot of plays were being done on Zoom. So this theater company that we were affiliated with in Norwalk, we continued to write short pieces, but now you had to write them for Zoom. And they were performed, and some of them really, we did 2 festivals, and they were very well received, and they were really, really well done. So it was interesting to see how you can take a a play that's usually it's live theater, and put it on, and you can subscribe to it. So it's almost like it was streaming. So, and that worked.
It kind of blurred the lines, and I think like that's an interesting thing. I mean, there's nothing like live theater. You know, it is its own form, but it is interesting what you can do. We can blur the lines a little bit.
We're running out of time, but technology and Zoom and the pandemic, how did it affect your worlds? Did it change everything for you as a writer?
For me, it was great. Strangely enough, like I took so many classes and I felt like I got to know so many writers. I have writer friends in England now and all over, and I think it's because of Zoom. Prior to that, most of the classes were done in person, and I'm hoping that a lot of the places will continue to keep them, you know, some of them at least on Zoom. Obviously, we love the in-person ones.
Your thoughts, Teri?
Not only could we meet playwrights from around, you know, the world, we also got to see productions that we normally wouldn't have seen. I remember seeing A Streetcar Named Desire done at the National Theatre in London with an amazing cast that just really blew me away. So there was a lot more opportunities to see productions that you may not have ever seen before. Oh,
excuse me. I just want to thank you both. We've run out of time, so thank you very much for being here. It's been very insightful.
Thank you very much.
And I know it's helped the audience a great deal.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deborah.
And you've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert. In case you'd like to volunteer or you think you'd be a great guest, I'd love to have you. Please write me at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.